All those in favor?
Aye.
Public comments, we have Luca first. There you are. Well, come on up. Actually, we should pull up a chair.
I can
We can-
stand here.
Oh, yeah, you can stand up, yeah.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know I'd be
Welcome.
first. Hi. My name's Luca. I have been a parent in the district for 21 years. My first child was foster adopt. 6 years old. I have worked in the classrooms as a para. I have been a volunteer for kindergarten through 6th grade. And my husband was the music educator at Kendall, Acme, and Harmony in all different capacities as well as a substitute. And I'm here to talk about the music education at Kendall or lack thereof, because there isn't one. So we didn't have a music educator this year, and we supposedly don't have one next year. And for me and my youngest son, that matters very little. Our brains don't work that way. For my older son, music education modulates his brain. So it helps kids with rhythm. It helps kids work together. It helps kids learn language, reading ability, executive functions, hand-eye coordination. Half the 6th grade class can't even tie their shoes. Think about that. We have 6th graders who can't tie their shoes. That's ridiculous. And part of that is because there's so much time on the computers and very little time doing things like music, which requires hand-eye coordination. We have it at Acme and Harmony. We have Jessica Rodriguez traveling back and forth between both schools. We don't have it at Kendall, which historically has been the most impoverished school in the district. I don't know if that is still, but so there's inequality happening. It's also, when I did my research today, I would have asked Jimmy, except for he used AI on me, and I was like, I can AI that. So anyway, I AI'd myself and did my own homework, and it's really important during sensitive growth periods, just like language is. So kindergarten through 2nd grade, that is the most important time to have music. It still works and helps kids after that, but that is when it does its most work, supposedly. It reinforces resilience. So kids practice something, they can't get it, and then the next day they come back to it and they get it. What an amazing feeling that is for our children. It promotes collaboration. I can't tell you how many times I got 6th grade boys with me in the car, and all of a sudden they start singing together. And having 4 6th grade boys singing together, they're working together. They're learning something about each other. They're watching each other's facial expressions. This is so important. And let's talk about the sense of community. So when we've lost our music education program, we've lost all of those things that I listed. And unfortunately, my husband left the program because he was having mental and emotional health, because he didn't have support in the school. When Robin Waldridge came to help him, once he asked for support, after I kept asking him to ask for support, it was amazing, because we had, and so I'm asking that we get a music educator there, at least part-time, in the very least. It helps all of these kids so much. And I think that is something that's possible. We have the funding for it. So we're calling it a music education program with no music educator. We're just taking other teachers and plugging them into that program. That's not okay. They're not music education experts. So thank you for your time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up is Natalie. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to public comments this evening. I want to acknowledge all of the U.S. military men and women who died while serving our country. They gave the ultimate sacrifice, their lives. I also want to acknowledge the U.S. military members who were involuntarily discharged during the unlawful and horrific COVID-19 vaccine mandate debacle. There were over 8,000 involuntary military discharges and over 90,000 coerced discharges due to the vaccine mandate. Please let that sink in for a moment. Even though the vaccine mandate was eventually withdrawn after lawsuits were initiated and after a lot of pushback from thousands of military members, and despite promises of reinstatement and back pay, many service members are still fighting for restored rank, benefits, retirement, and honorable discharge status. I hope that you'll all consider buying tickets to watch the documentary, Duty to Disobey, which will be screened at the Burlington AMC Theater on Tuesday, June 30th at 7 p.m. at 200 Cascade Mall Drive. This documentary will help to increase your awareness as to what transpired in our armed forces during the COVID-19 years and how much suffering thousands of military members went through, whose lives, careers, and finances were destroyed just because they stood their ground and said no to getting an experimental COVID-19 vaccine injected into their body. And there are also numerous COVID vaccinated service members who are suffering as well. Those who are now COVID vaccine injured. Not only are their lives, careers, and finances destroyed, but their physical health is destroyed, and many now have lifelong disabilities. So I hope that you'll consider watching the documentary to see and hear what some of the service members have to say about their experience during the COVID years. On a different note, I attended the Public Health Advisory Board meeting at the Whatcom Health Department on Thursday, May 14th. The health officer gave a report on hantavirus, which included that the risk is very low, with 1 to 5 cases in Washington state every year and 1 case in Whatcom County about every decade. And she's correct. And I'll add that our odds of being struck by lightning are more than 7 times greater than our odds of contracting the hantavirus in the United States. The health officer also mentioned that there were no vaccines yet, which I thought was very odd to mention. Why would time even be wasted to develop a vaccine, especially for a virus that has such an extremely low risk? What the health officer neglected to mention, perhaps because she isn't aware, is that there are currently 13 hantavirus vaccines, which include mRNA gene therapy programs that are currently in active development. And one happens to be connected to Moderna, which reminds me of the phrase, just follow the money and follow Big Pharma, who makes billions of dollars in profit from the vaccine industry. In addition, 4 months ago, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, CEPI, which was co-founded by Bill Gates, awarded $26.7 million to Moderna and the University of Oxford to develop Ebola vaccines, including mRNA, to target the specific Ebola strain that coincidentally happens to be responsible for the current outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It's very interesting. We couldn't make this dystopian tale up if we tried. I want to stress the importance of teaching our children and teenagers to critically think and to ask critical questions, even if those questions rock the boat, so to speak, and are critical of the mainstream narrative. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment period. Next, we have special presentation. Greg, you're up.
Okay. So as he's coming up, I just want to introduce that part of the Mount Baker Education Association contract states that any teacher that has worked for the Mount Baker School District for 30 years or more and retires in our district has the opportunity to do a 30-year project. And Greg has done that, and this is going to be his presentation.
All right, and we're gonna not get emotional. One of the ways I'm doing that is having a lot of hands-on stuff. So our superintendent didn't know she was gonna do this. I did feel like I could do one good surprise on her. You can use this because you're gonna be running around helping me. Okay. So first, if you would hand out one of these to each person. I forgot about the girls, Gabby. I think there's enough for everyone though. So when Jessica gets back, we need to have popcorn, and I thought you guys should probably have some popcorn. So I'm gonna have her come around and she'll put, a plate on there. The one thing I will honor our superintendent is she asked me to keep it to 10 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's see, who had the phone earlier? One of you girls. You do a 10-minute timer on me. And okay, I'll keep track of it. It's an honor to be here. I I've taught almost all your kids, and in some cases, I actually taught Danielle in the classroom. And so it's very surreal being here, to be honest. And it's strange to think that 35 years have gone this fast. But I wanted to start at the very beginning of this presentation. Soup, if you would go around to the people on popcorn.
Does everybody want popcorn?
You're enjoying bossing around.
Okay.
I already had to apologize to her yesterday
How many of
because
you
I
would
was
like
being a little
popcorn?
forthright.
You win.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start my timer just as, but I'm gonna count on Gabby or one of you to make sure that you. Yeah. First of all, I honestly want to thank you guys. I've been on boards before, never a school board, but I've been on a lot of boards, and it's a thankless job, almost always. And I would venture to say I would hope to never serve on another board in my lifetime. Helping. But we need people who do this. And so I'm so thankful for you guys when you step up to do this, because I know it's a lot of work and I know it's a lot of pressure and phone calls and people and all. I know that that's there. And I really want you guys to know that I appreciate it. I don't think other people really probably understand it unless they're like Rolly Holterman, who is here at every board meeting and understand all the rigmarole that goes on. So thank you very much. Now, you do have some notes there. First of all, I did a project. Jessica had it all lined out. I didn't think it was all that great personally. I thought it was pretty subpar. But that being said, curriculum is not my thing, and that was a lot of curriculum stuff. So I'm not going to talk about it. If you want to get it, she's got it. It's yours. You guys do whatever you want with it. These are just some notes I took. Some of it's into it, some of it's not. There's going to be a quiz and there are prizes. So please feel free to take notes as we go through here. So I can't get this all on one page, even though I tried, but I am super grateful for the opportunity to have been in this district. It was back 35 years ago when Kim Robinson, for those who have been around long enough, knew who Mr. Robinson was, and Bill Bolton, our superintendent at the time, who gave me the opportunity to be here. And I had no idea what this journey was going to be like. And honestly, one of the things that I realized is that I got more joy out of doing what I did than I ever was able to give to the district, I think. This community has been so supportive of me and so gracious and so kind. It's a little bit overwhelming. I've had the opportunity to teach generations. I mean, how unbelievable is that, really? I can name names. I could go through 1,000 names. I'm only going to name a couple names today. Ken Robinson, Bill Bolton. We'll see a couple others later because I wouldn't be able to stop. Right? They're just way too many. But literally, I have taught kids who I changed their diapers because I was friends with people in the community, had to babysit them. I've taught their kids, and then you guys and your kids, and stuff. It's just like, this is my family. This has been my home. I feel very blessed to be part of that. I have my first mentor was a guy named Paul Schwartzman. Paul was probably one of the best teachers I think I've been around. He truly was outstanding, way beyond his years. And he was my mentor for the first few years that I was here before he retired. And so I had people like him. And again, I don't want to leave anyone out, so I'm really not going to name a lot of colleagues because that would just go on to it forever. But even today, I've been co-teaching with Britta Martins, one of our younger teachers. And I'm telling you, we have some bright, brilliant, wonderful teachers who model excellence on a daily basis. And, for me to see the young Britta Martins coming up along with some of us older people, it's amazing. We have you guys, I hope you realize the staff, the people that work here, the community we have, it's outstanding. I think we have a passionate community. I know we do. And I think for us to succeed, I do have some ideas. I do think that the community sees we are the hub. What else is there in our district, right? So I think one of the most important things that we have to keep in mind is, what are the community needs as well? We're educating their kids, but we should be very community minded, I think, and be aware of our community and what is important to them, you know, and there's a lot, right? There's all over the place. But I think that that's really important. If I was going to make some recommendations, I would say, you know, transparency, regular communication to happen both internally and externally. That's really kind of you guys in a lot of ways, right? We have the technology, we can do a lot of things, but I think that that makes a huge difference. We are the glue of the community. We need to be community minded. And of course, we focus on educating our kids, but we should always keep in mind, I think, the community in general. Teaching is really hard work. It was hard work when I started. I think that's not a surprise. But today, I think we're all aware that our teaching has gotten a lot harder. A lot more is expected of us. Kids come with a lot more issues and needs. And a lot of us, you know, have taken on a lot of different roles. It's been a really difficult challenge. And, you know, I've always liked to challenge myself every year. Part of the thing I like about teaching is refining and continuing to do things that are different. But I just wanted to reiterate that I think that, as it says in the notes here, you know, we show compassion, we model integrity, we teach our curriculum, we make sure their basic needs are met, we cheer them on in the classroom and outside the classroom. We mold their minds to think for themselves. I think that's probably the most important thing. And I also want to remind all of us that teaching is a privilege, right? We're getting, you know, it's getting tougher to be in the teaching profession, but when you realize the impact that we have, that you guys have, right? Because it all starts here, it really does. I used to think it started in the classroom, and I quickly learned there's way more that goes on well beyond that, that dictates how things go. And I think it starts with you guys, and it needs to flow down from that. But I do think that it's important that we recognize that we all have very difficult jobs, and self-care is a real thing. I think that for the most part, most of the teachers and staff members and people I know, they are going to meet the challenge no matter what it takes, even if it runs them into the ground sometimes. And so for you guys as well, you know, I think it's super important that you guys do what you guys can to make sure that you guys understand that we all have to work together and we all have tough jobs, and we want to be as kind and compassionate as we can to face the challenges that we have. I know we have the right people here to do it. I've told Jessica this a few times, superintendent a few times. You know, I know she's the right person. I felt that from day one when she came in. And I feel the exact same way. And some of the people I talked to, I confirm that as well. I don't have a lot. I haven't been able to connect with her a lot, but I know you guys, and I know we have the right people in place that we're going to meet these challenges, right? So I guess that's my encouragement to you guys. The very first person who welcomed me to this district was Jim Freeman. Jim was a teacher. He was a coach. He was a school board member here. Jim was one of the best men I've ever known. Truly was outstanding. Paul was Mr. Schwartzman was my mentor, so to speak, but Jim was behind me all the way and encouraged me all the way. So I wanted to end with the poem that he wrote, and I believe it's on our website, but it kind of encapsulates. When we used to do an 8th grade graduation, I would read this every year because it just reminds me of the pride. And if I was going to encapsulate, if I was going to pick somebody to represent Mount Baker, I think it would have been Jim Freeman. Jim really did everything that I thought the best would do. So this is called Proud to Be Mountaineers by Jim Freeman. When the morning greets the valley and the eagle starts to fly, sunlight peeking over the mountain lights the dome of Baker High. Hear the domes that guide our future. Hear the ties that bind our lives. Hear the friends we've come to cherish. Hear our goals for which we strive. And the path that we have chosen is a trail of joy and tears. But the strength we found together leads us on to be mountaineers. Give us streams and we'll cross them. Valleys deep will bring no fears. Give us mountains, we will climb them. After all, we are mountaineers. And with those who have gone before us, may we stand amidst the cheers. For we've climbed a lofty mountain, and we're proud to be mountaineers. Yes, we are proud to be mountaineers. So I'm honored to be here. I'm honored for the opportunity. You're not going to lose me. I will be at events here and there. I might even sub now and then. I don't know. My daughter and granddaughter got me this. I'm not retiring. I'm a professional OPA. That's actually what got this all going. I can show you all kinds of pictures, but let's get to the thing. So when you answer a question, Jessica is going to come around. She's going to open the box and you can take something out. It's yours. Feel free. So first one, who was my mentor when I first came here? We raise hands here. Yes, ma'am.
Paul Schwartzman.
Paul Schwartzman. Wow, good job. Great job. Okay. Who did I say was one of the brightest young teachers that I work with currently? Yes, sir. Britta Martin. They'll give that man a chance to look at it. Okay. I said there were two things I thought were important for us to keep improving. Can anyone name those two things? You can look at your notes. You only get one shot at it. Sorry. Yes. Okay, you're close. Yeah, and no. Look at your notes. It's paragraph. It's the beginning of paragraph 4, kids. So I need to tell you it's 5. Paragraph 5, the first 2 words. First, yes.
Transparency and communication.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead and help them out. True or false? Mr. Gaza thinks that teaching is pretty easy work, really. And you can do it. Yes, Jason. I heard a false. We got a correct answer over
I would
here.
say true.
Who wrote the poem? We are proud to be mountaineers.
That one, Jim.
Yes, sir. Give Russ a chance at the one.
And I think Jim and I overlapped.
Okay, Danielle, what is my favorite nurse that I've ever worked with here in the Mount Baker School District? Exactly. Wow. She pulled that one out of her hat.
It wasn't.
Wow.
Extra credit.
No, no diss to the other nurses. They've all been fine, but Lorelai was the best. I'm telling you. I won't say anything if I can't say the truth, and she's that. So that's all there is. Okay, who has it? We all have a chance to get something here.
Thank you.
Okay. So anyway, I think I've gone over a bit. Thank you very much. It's been a privilege, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I didn't get to your points. That's okay. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Please do. You let me go over.
You can talk for however you do.
That's fine. I can be here all night.
Thanks, Tammy. So good to see you.
Me too.
You know, you caught my brother like a long time ago,
Mhm.
like a really long.
Like
a really long time.
Okay, I've been here 35 years, so a long time can be a lot of different things. Who was your brother?
Luis?
Luis who?
Corrado?
Yes. What was it, 10 years ago?
Maybe a little bit more. 10 years ago is about when you graduated.
Okay, well, that's not that long.
Brandon Brightstein.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh, mine.
The names, they're all here. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your
I
hard
think
work.
Greg was a great reminder of what we're here for. Thank you too much.
You're very welcome.
Next up is district
Oh, wait,
information.
one last thing. Don't forget to look at the pictures. We forgot. Jessica didn't get all the pictures out. Oh, did you? Did you all get the pictures? Oh,
I don't know.
what I was gonna tell you, one of them is that was my very first year. The one on the right, I don't think I've aged very well. But that was in the old building. When we looked down here on the library, I was up at the thing. And then I was just gonna point out, my wife and I used to do ASB back in the day. We'd go to the Tolos, so we got to dress up. We didn't date in high school or anything, so that was our Tolo. And then the far left picture, I took some privileges sometimes. So when we talked about medieval Europe, I would be referred to as king. And You know, it's junior high. So kids got into it and they made me a crown. The girl you can't see behind her, Emery, I can't remember her last name. Emery made that. She was sophomore this year. Made that crown and she wanted to give it to me. And then I said, well, let's do this, right? Let's have you all bow it down to me and give me the crown. And those are the kind of fun moments that, you know, you get to have when you're a junior high teacher. I don't think it works in high school, but some of these other ones. But anyway, and then Mr. Gray, I just wanted to throw him in there. This is going to be a page in the junior high yearbook that he put together. I hired Mr. Gray when he had his mullet. Goodness, that guy's- Anyway, thank you. I apologize for that.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. So next we have, go to the order.
I'm gonna keep it short, the go to the order short today, because I know the student reps have a number of student recognitions for good of the order, but I do want to just share that our teachers came together last Friday for a professional development day, where we spent the morning, all of the teachers, all the elementary schools, junior high and high school were here on this campus. Some really good learning about teaching practices and collaboration, and then ended the day with our pride presentations for our seniors this year. So we're doing a lot, we're modeling the learning that we want to see from our students.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So information from student representatives, and we also have later on the agenda, cell phones, but this is the, your other point, and I will start with you, Lita, because you missed last meeting.
Okay, well, I'll start with the FFA stuff. That's my little area of expertise. So I guess just general state achievements so far, ones that we've gotten so far this year. We've placed top 10 in every single activity that we went to state for, so that's pretty good. We got 2nd in forestry, 4th in vet science, 6th in ag mech, and 9th in ENR. Also about 2 weeks ago, parliamentary procedure went to state convention over there in Poland. So Mount Baker Red, which was comprised of Joseph Abidia, Willa Brown, Casey Pinkey, Hazel Grout, myself, and Emerald Scott. We got the highest test score at state, 167 out of 200 possible points. Super difficult test based on Robert's Rules of Order. So very proud of that. We busted our butt studying. And we placed 2nd overall. So that was pretty great. Then Mount Baker Black, which was comprised of Ruth Cranborn, Andrew Compton, Caleb Cooper, Fox Currit, and Mikhail Fairbanks, got 5th in state in test scores and then placed 6th overall. We also had an inaugural barbecue team competing there at state convention with Raymond Kleinsmith, Ethan Tritz, Ariana Wooden, and Emery Walston. With only 2 practices, they placed 4th in the novice division out of 60 total teams. So they did very well. Then in public speaking, I got 7th overall individual, and I also got the highest manuscript score in the state. Can't remember if it was 197 or 197, yes, 197 out of 200 possible points. Wow. So pretty good. And that is all the FFA stuff.
I don't know if you want me to read all those. I am not good with names. There's a long, very long list of students who are going to state for track.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a very long list and I'm very bad at names, so I will not read all of them. But we can read
You take half of it.
golf. You want me to?
You can,
What's considered half? Because there's
okay, you do golf on the other ones.
I'm really, really bad at names. Okay. So boys golf is Peyton Abedia and Carter Hill as the alternate. I read that. I got it. I did it.
And then for track, we've got, dang, I'm bad at names. Macy Kamenga, Sophie Reitmeyer, Abby Washburn, Lily Washburn, Violet Fox, Ellie Nutting, Presley Holland, Ellen Fox, Jane Lentz, Alina Romaniuk, Ellie Hanstead, Jordan Bailey, Kane Cooper, Noah Nicole Mills, Bryce Cooper, Hayden Zamko, Caden Rydesdale, Cody Moa, John Weigert, Mikhail Fairbanks, Henry Contreras Moreno, Luke Bailey, and then our coaches are Paul Cooper, Brett Johnson, Jake Huntley, Sasha Lewis, Trinity Anderson. So let's wish them luck at state.
Mhm.
Yeah, see, couldn't have read that.
Thank you. Now we have under agenda for discussion, but I didn't send anything for that this time.
Oh, you're gonna get in trouble.
Sounds like we're skipping it then. Sounds like we're skipping it then.
Last time we discussed about how we should approach it. We didn't go further than that, so. I will, in the interest of time today, I will skip over that one. With your acquiescence. Next up is the consent agenda. I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda? Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then superintendent informational items.
I have two topics. The first is to discuss our July retreat dates. So I've heard from a few of you, but not all. And right now, July 10th, which is a Thursday, is the regular board meeting. And I'd like to propose
I
that,
think it's the 9th, isn't the
is it the 9th or the 10th?
Thursday?
The 10th is a Thursday.
10th?
Mhm.
I see the 10th as a Friday. What am I looking at?
I do too. Okay.
Me too.
The second.
Okay, so the 9th is the Thursday. What my proposal is that we cancel that meeting and instead do our retreat on Monday, the 13th or Tuesday, the 14th. This would be like a 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock session, and that would take the place of the regular board meeting, the first of the board meeting. So what I'd like to know is just would that Monday or Tuesday work better? Or you're gone though.
I think I'm gone the Friday to the Monday, but I would be back that Monday, so I could
You
do
could do
Tuesday. Yeah.
So does the 14th work for everyone?
14th works for me because I'm out of town until the 12th or the 13th. So.
Is in the morning.
Probably about 9 to 2, but we can adjust that with schedules.
July 14th.
And then July 23rd would be the regular board meeting where our goal would be to have the budget prepared and ready for that board meeting if we haven't already done it in June. And then we'll also have our CTE Perkins grant presentation from Todd Wright and I are at that meeting as well.
So would we be able to have a budget hearing on July 14th?
We could, but if we may do the budget hearing at the last meeting in June.
Okay,
And
okay,
then we
yeah, I
can do
was
the
just
board,
trying to
yeah.
back it up before.
All right, I was just putting the July 14th. What was the other one?
July 23rd.
Yeah, so if we're ready for the last meeting in June, the budget hearing, let's do that one and then.
Okay.
We've got a board meeting on July 23rd at 6.
Right, that would be our normal.
It would be at that normal.
Yep.
one.
Okay, so the other piece that I wanted to share is an update on the strategic plan. I think we're about there, and I think we're going to be ready to bring this to you for consideration for adoption at the end of June as well. So this is an overview of where we've been, and what the board has in front of you are packets of some of the finished products. And that packet, with the board's permission, will be shared with our steering team and with our teacher leaders who have worked on this plan so that they can give us some more in-depth feedback on the plan as well. But for the board and for the listening public, the plan is structured in the graphic that you see there, where we have the core values, the mission, the vision, the foundational support system, outcomes, targets, and the strategic plan practices. That is all the work that we have completed since January. And the profile of a graduate is something we started to talk about, but I'd like to not check that off now. And that's something that we'll spend some more time on throughout this next school year, so that this time next year, we can put that finishing touch on the plan. This is some information that I've shared with the teachers last week, because I think it's important to make sure that people understand what the plan is and what the plan is not. So the plan is a roadmap. It's a way for us to measure progress. And that was something I heard loud and clear from the board around how there are a lot of really good ideas in the current plan, but there aren't a lot of ways to measure it. And so that's what we're aiming for this time around. What the plan is not is just one more thing and just a pile on of more work. What you're gonna see in the plan, especially in the last four pages or so, is there's a place for us to talk about the staging of the plan. There's a lot of ideas in this plan too, and we're gonna have to decide what happens in years 1 and 2, what happens 3 and 4, and what waits for that final year in 2031. So the work that we've done so far, we had more than 500 survey responses. Over half of those were students. We had 50 steering team members who came together 4 different times in February and March. And those sessions were where we took that survey data, talked about it, analyzed it. We set the core values, mission, and vision. There's been some revision of the vision since then. And so that's reflected in what the draft that's being shared today. We talked about student data, and we also recommended outcomes and targets that also are in the draft plan now as well. And we started talking about workforce data, and that's still a lot of the work to come with our graduate profile. Okay. So I'm starting, and I apologize for those of you in the boardroom here, it's the view of this is a little bit obscured, but I'm starting to put together the pieces of when this is finalized, the kind of the public facing portion of this. So this is not in the packet because the packet's still the draft form, but you can envision that in that strategic plan cover, we'll have some beautiful pictures of our students there. And the packet will be structured in a way that it has all the different pieces for the public and our district to use. The plan will have our mission, our core values, our vision of the student experience, again, with lots of pictures of our students. And so in your packets, you do have this page, which is the vision, mission, and core values. The next page is our goals, outcomes, and targets. And this is where the rubber really hits the road in terms of what are we going to be looking for? What are you going to be able to see and be able to measure? This is one of the newer things that we've finished recently. We were just working on it today. These are the things that we're going to be working on at the district level. It's different than necessarily what will be happening in classrooms or in school offices. These are things that'll be happening with those who work in the district office in conjunction with the buildings. So I know our previous plan talked about safe and caring schools, and that's still here. So it still has a place, as well as the work that we do with finances and operations and HR and all of those pieces. The work that the teachers have been helping with the last few weeks have been to really flesh out what are we going to do to meet each of those outcomes. So these are just a couple examples. This comes from goal area 1, safety and belonging. There's 4 different outcomes, and this page is the second of 4, which is to increase the number of students who report they feel safe in our schools. And some of the things that we're going to do in order to meet that, and I'll just read the middle there because it's the easiest to see, is ensure that at the classroom level, students know how to access trusted adults and who will respond promptly to their concerns. Principal leaders will ensure that students and families know how to report concerns and access support. And then at the district level, we're monitoring implementation of safety procedures and providing schools with guidance, support, and access to resources. And that work's already underway with some of the policy review that we've been doing the last few months. And in fact, last Friday, our counselor and non-instructional staff were doing more work reviewing our safety and support plans and our CPS reporting and different things that have come to light that we need to have more consistency around those documents. And so that work is ongoing and will be ready for the start of the school year. This is another example. It comes from Mastery of Standards. This is also the second of 3 different outcomes. And this is where teachers were spending time, not just coming up with, best ideas just off the top of their head, but we really spent time looking at research and what is best practice say that they should be looking at. So, for example, if we're going to be increasing the number of students who are making annual growth in all content areas, it's going to be important that we have specific actions that will help students engage in monitoring themselves and reflecting on their learning goals, and that we have systems for supporting that and monitoring that through data and through the time to review that data and then take action based on that. So there's a lot of information in these packets. I don't expect you to digest it all today, but you do now have the opportunity to start reviewing it. The way that this will also show up in our schools, this is an example from Kendall's school improvement plan from this last year, where we were starting to dabble in this idea of talking about what classroom teachers are responsible for, what the leadership team, what the principal and what the district office will do. And as we saw when the board visited Kendall last month, they've been doing a lot of work around classroom and behavior systems. And so that's showing up. And that's an example of how we're not just writing it on a piece of paper and forgetting about it. It is part of the way that we're doing the work together, and we keep revisiting. So you're going to see a lot more of that with the new school improvement plans. The difference between the district strategic plan and those building plans is the district plan sets the direction, but the individual schools get to define what works for them. It's important that schools maintain their identity and their context, because what works at Kendall may not necessarily work at Acton and vice versa. We also want to make sure, though, that there's enough coherence across the system, but there's similarity, and that teachers are able to better collaborate and work together. So for next steps, now that we're at the end of May, we've finished working on the strategy portion. Next week, with the board's permission, we'll be sending out a PDF of the packet that you have in front of you, and that'll go to the steering team members and to the teacher leaders who have worked on the plan. Again, inviting their feedback. There's questions there on the right-hand side. I'm going to put that into a Google form, and that'll be the way that people can respond if they have comments or suggestions.
If we move our, oh no, that's July. Okay, I'm sorry.
So I'm going to close that survey on June 12th. That gives us enough time to review the feedback, so that when on June 25th, I'll have an update of the plan, and I'll be asking the board to consider it for adoption. Cool. So any concerns with me putting this out next week?
Do you want feedback from the board through the survey?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm all for sending it out.
Okay. Then I will do so, and I'll make sure you guys get the feedback form as well. Perfect.
June 1st through 12th feedback.
Yes.
This is looking really good.
It's coming together.
I mean, wow.
There's a lot of work going on and very clear what we were missing, so I love it.
Anything else?
That is all I have.
Next up is policy and practice, and this meeting we wanted to look at cell phone policy, and invited Lita and Gabby to lead up this section of our meeting.
Was a little do that. Yeah. So you'll probably recognize this presentation here. We basically just added more onto what we presented last time. Last time we talked a lot about just research regarding teenagers, cell phones, and just the effect that they can have. And we just covered a lot of that. So you'll see
All the same
all the same research we presented last time.
Okay, and then we talked about what we looked at, and kind of the things that our policy already focuses on, right? So a lot of the same stuff, right, focuses on a lot of things that like sexting maybe doesn't need to be in there.
Or at least not so heavily focused on.
And then some outdated language on all those sorts of things.
Okay, so now the day has arrived. We presented a timeline to you last time, said May 28th, we're gonna get back to you. That day has come. So let's start with the student.
Oh, sorry, you added a lot of transitions and now.
Yeah, they're fun, okay?
There's something.
So here are the student responses. I guess it kind of cuts off the question, but it's basically just what is your grade? Obviously, we put this mostly out to high school and junior high, just because we had a lot more access to these kids, and so it was a lot easier to get their opinions. And also, when we were talking and discussing about how like a phone policy would change, we kind of came to the conclusion that it would probably be affecting like these grade levels the most, simply because these are probably more avid like phone technology users because of their age. And so I know it might seem like 8th and 9th grade and 11th grade like are just like bad responders, but it really is probably just differences in class sizes. I'm pretty sure that we've got a pretty small junior class and then we have a really big 10th grade class. So that's the only reason why it could possibly look a little bit strange like that. And then so we asked them what devices should be included in the policy. Obviously, we can see a large amount of students said that cell phones and iPads/tablets should be considered, should be under the phone policy. And so as we were like looking over this, we're like, okay, you know, we did get some other responses like that we kind of attributed to the way the question was worded. It's something that you'll kind of see a lot as we like progress through the slideshow, is that looking back on it, we could have worded a lot of our questions more clearly. But obviously these are things that we recognize in hindsight, and so we work with what we have. I think it's pretty obvious. I think that the conclusion that we came to was these kids really like music, and I totally get that. And so that's probably why earbuds and smartwatches are kind of way lower than cell phones and iPads, also simply because they're not big screen devices. And so that kind of like creates a separation, I think, in most students' minds. And so then we asked the question, do you support the current no phone use policy? So again, the format of the question should be taken into consideration, because we kind of learned that using that like no or not words when asking a question can lead to confusion when it comes to answering. So you'll see that it's obviously a large portion no. But I think an important thing to recognize is that most of the other responses that we see are like different like variations of like, oh yeah, no, I totally support like not using my phone in class, but like if it's free time or if it's lunch, I should totally get to use it. And so I feel like it's definitely more of a 50-50 split than what it seems to be.
Okay. Yeah. So next question, do you support not using any personal device in class? So here, majority, I mean, it's mostly half and half, and again, that has to do with the other responses. A lot of students, they typed it out and, wanted to say a few more things. And a lot of those come with like the exceptions to when you want to use your personal device. Obviously, a lot of our students like using music. It helps them focus. It helps them work in class during free time. So a lot of those other are important to recognize that those are also just yes, but.
So for this question, you lumped phones with tablets.
Yeah, just like
lumped
any
it all
personal
together,
device, like
any
anything.
personal device that would be used.
So basically anything that's like not school provided. So like Chromebook wouldn't count. So like, but your phone, maybe a tablet that you might have, or anything like that, that would be lumped in as like personal device.
What times during the day should be under the phone policy? Again, this question is a little bit confusing. In hindsight, we probably should have changed that, but the question is basically asking, what shouldn't be allowed during class or during specific times. So so again, some of the written no, but kind of it was written to make like no, this didn't make sense, but here's what I was trying to say. So here, that's some of the other ones. A lot of people did say lunch, obviously before and after school, that's a perfect free time. And passing periods. One thing we noticed about our policy is it doesn't directly state that passing period you should have your phone out. So I mean, technically you shouldn't, but passing period is definitely a free time. You're allowed to go to the office or to the bathroom or whatever, right? So we wanted to make sure we got a definitive, free time or passing period is something that students want to use.
So while like the question might say, oh, what time do you think should be included like under the phone policy? I think we can all pretty like much understand that despite these students saying, oh, like lunch should be under the phone policy before and after school or passing periods, I think we can pretty much assume and understand that what they mean is like, these are times that we should be able to use our phones. Because like just simply because of the way we worded the question,
Right.
they answered it to the best of their ability, and I think we can infer what they meant from that.
This one has
It's about how many hours a day.
How many hours a day do you spend on your phone?
Oh my God.
So, right, yep. So, I mean, this is anywhere from 1 to 5+ hours. Most students spend 1 to 2, 2 to 3 hours, they would say. And so some things to consider about this is what does it mean to be on your phone? Honestly, I considered it as like on your phone, but some might consider it like using your headphones is on your phone, right? Some things like that, like does having music in count as being distracted or on your phone necessarily? So some of these could be kind of skewed based on personal preference of what considers on your phone.
Did you find any nationally rigorously scientifically based information on the hours per teenager?
I don't probably in there. Answer.
I thought you were gonna say something, so.
No, I thought it was in the research in the beginning.
It might be.
Again.
But we're probably gonna end up finding something out about that anyway.
Mhm.
So honestly, most of the way we analyze this so far is just like obviously personal lenses, talking with other students about this, just simply because they've asked us a lot of questions, and so we've done our best to answer them. And so it's definitely like we've analyzed it through a personal lens. But we haven't definitely gone in depth of like, oh, what's like a national average for students, just simply because also bigger students could be very different from a national average.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I asked it, because if you had tracking device on each person in the survey's phone, the phone itself would tell you how many minutes they were on it.
Mm-hmm.
As
And that's why
opposed to
we
self-reporting,
yeah.
sometimes like, okay,
Mhm.
I've only used it a half hour. Well, it took me 3 hours to do that half hour, but
That's why we kind of included guesstimates could be skewed, because we kind of figured that most of these kids wouldn't like exit out of the survey, go and check like in their settings, oh, how much time on average do I spend on my phone in like a week? And so we figured that they wouldn't like be including that. And so that's why we figure like these are kind of like their own personal estimates of like how much time do they think they spend on their phone. And so that can obviously be pretty skewed of like, oh, but it's like they could possibly spend like 4 hours on their phone. But then it's like, oh, but it feels like 2. So it's like that's where kind of like they're guesstimating of how much time can be spent.
And some of that is also, I mean, not all of it is going to be at school, right? School takes up how many hours? I would like to say, I think it's like 6. Somewhere in there. Stop.
That's mine.
Okay. Anyway, somewhere near 6, right? So at 5+ hours, that can be assumed that some of that is during school, and that's kind of the way we wanted to get that kind of information to kind of get, again, a guesstimate of how much our students are really on their phone for most of the day. Okay, what do you spend most of your time doing on your phone? So a lot of the research that was done is mostly on like how distracted students are, right? And so kind of seeing what our students are doing on their phone. During class, during passing periods. So what is the main thing a student would be doing on their phone, right? So it's important to consider that this is a checkbox question. So these are students clicking multiple things, right? And so most students said communication, but this can also be communication between families or emergencies or anything like that, right? So that's also something we consider when we're looking at this is communication is a big thing, but it could also be beneficial communication.
But then also like we recognize that communication is the largest thing, but also like how important was it? Was it like your mom texting your mom, oh, can you go like come sign me out of school so that way I can go home? Or is it like something like, oh, like my sister's sick, I've got to get home early so that way I can go like pick her up or something, whatever it may be. And so it's just like questioning like how like evenly divided is that communication into separate sections.
Okay, so then we talked about focus groups. So we did focus groups. We pulled a bunch of kids into the library, and we just had kind of a conversation going over those previous questions. Because, I mean, in my eyes, I can ask you a question, and you can say yes or no, but I can't ask you why. And the why is the important part. So we wanted to ask why. And we kind of came to the same conclusions and some of these things that we got were key takeaways, and some of those were, they understand, a lot of the students did understand, like, we don't want to have our phones out when a teacher is teaching, right? That's, I mean, it's considered rude, and it's also just beneficial to be paying attention. So a lot of our students understood that and were not opposed to that idea at all. A lot of students wanted to emphasize the fact that if I'm all caught up and I have nothing else to do, the one thing I want to do is be on my phone. I think a lot of our Chromebooks also, like, they don't let you be on social media. They don't let you play games, right? They don't let you kind of get that release of like, I just want to relax and play a game, or I want to be on social media, right? So a lot of our students were like, if I have nothing to do and I'm just sitting there, I'd like to have my phone out and have my personal device and do what I want to do for that time. And that was a lot of students. It's really important to a lot of those students. And then listening to music during independent work. So a lot of what we focused on was during, when a teacher is teaching, right, you want to be focused, but what happens after that, right? When a teacher releases you to do independent work, and a lot of students said, I want to have access to my music. Obviously, classrooms with 30 or more kids is loud, and some of those kids could be talking, some of those kids, like, you don't know what those kids are doing, right? So wanting to kind of put in your headphones and do what you want to do is important to students and have someone.
One thing that we didn't list on here, but that we did talk about, was students' perspectives on teachers also being underneath, like, under the jurisdiction of the phone policy. And so we talked about to them about, like, okay, so obviously if we were to do this, you're going to be under this, you're the student, you're like the target demographic for this policy. But what about teachers? Do you think that they should also be held to the same standards as you, see, and how they're really like a role model? You know, they're the example. You phrases lead by example, is it not? And so, you know, we talked to them and they were like, yeah, no, if I can't have my phone out during the school day, because it was a hypothetical, like maybe, you know, just like the entire day, no phone. Then it's like, well, teachers also shouldn't be able to have their phone out, because shouldn't they be focused on teaching? They should, I'm the subject there. I'm supposed to be what they're focused on. And so that's generally like what the common like sentiment among students was, that if I can't have my phone out, then teachers also shouldn't have their phone out. Obviously, teachers have different feelings about this, but we'll do that later.
We'll get there. Eventually. Yeah. Okay, so then we did the community survey, right? And so community members is about 35%, and then a lot of them were also parents, right? Parents of non-paper students, so we wanted to make sure we kind of got that different. Okay, so first question, how many hours a day do you think the teenagers
in your life
spend on their phones? Most people said 5+ hours, which is different from what the students have said.
So, yeah, obviously, you know, there's things to consider there. One thing is that our student group was much larger. We got 400 student responses, I think, in total across all those grade levels. So obviously that's a big group. And then when it came to our community survey, I think we got like 26, something like that. And so obviously it's a much smaller group. Numbers will look extremely different. Some margins will look much larger. But then also, you know, these are adults. They have different perspectives from students. I know when I talk to my mom, and perhaps I've been on my phone for like perhaps an hour, and then I go do something, and then I come back and she'll be like, oh my gosh, you've been on your phone the entire morning. It's like, well, that's skewed, isn't it? That's not what actually happened. And so obviously we have to recognize that each group has their bias and like the way they view certain things. And so obviously that's not saying, oh, you're wrong, this group is wrong, you're right. No, it's just something to consider, the fact that, hey, you know, they look at things differently, but probably they meet somewhere in the middle. Do you believe kids spend too much time on their phones in school? So then obviously we've got a large portion yes, and then no's and maybes. Things to consider, again, a small group. Also, these are adults. I wouldn't be surprised if most of them haven't been in high school, or even perhaps in a Baker high school, a while or ever. And so, you know, that kind of changes things. You know, perhaps if they've never attended Mount Baker, or perhaps they attended Mount Baker a long time ago, well, obviously the demographics have changed, students have changed, and, you know, obviously our world has changed. And so, you know, things kind of like shift a little. Perhaps like what you remember was like perhaps maybe being on your iPod all the time, and now kids are on their phones, but you consider the two things separately. And so, you know, those are things that can change. And then again, we come back to the question of what qualifies as on your phone. Does listening to music with your phone tucked away in your backpack count as on your phone? Or maybe a student would say, that's not being on my phone. So it comes back to that
Again,
question.
that difference. Yep. Do you believe that phones should not be in school? Obviously we see, I mean, again, right, so is leaning yes, but there's also kind of a 50-50 on the maybes and the no. And some of those maybes were written out in the written response. And a lot of those, I mean, had to do, I don't know if you put it further on the survey, but in the slideshow, but a lot of those had to do with, I mean, I want my kid to have their phone in an emergency, right? I want my kid to be able to contact me. I want my kid to be able to get where they need to be. And phones are part of that, right? So some of those maybes were written down. Do you believe that phones
Disrupt a
a student's focus?
Hmm.
Oh, pretty
Yes.
much overwhelming.
Yes.
Yes. And research backs that.
So,
From when we first presented the research on this, you'll probably see, at least in one of the slides, that it does. Phones do disrupt. Simply by having your phone near you, it can disrupt your ability and really the capabilities and like the possibilities that you can execute. So research backs this response.
do you see a problem with phones not being allowed in school? Now, this is, again, this is kind of extreme, right? This is a ban of all cell phones. And majority said no, and again, for those reasons, like, I want my kid to have a phone for emergency purposes, I want, like, my kid to, be able to contact me or who they need to, all those sorts of things, right? So again, we're not proposing an entire ban of cell phones, but this was just a question we wanted to see, the community kind of respond and you see what the response was. Do you support banning, again, smartphones, watches, and earbuds for the entirety of school? Again, it's more of an extreme portion.
So obviously an overwhelming yes, but if we look at those no's and those maybes, a lot of them were like, I mean, like, yeah, you shouldn't have your phone out while the teacher's teaching, but my student works great with music in the background. So, you know, they should be able to have access to that while they do their own work. They're not disrupting the classroom, they're doing their work. So they should be able to have access to that. So honestly, a lot of these maybes and perhaps even no's are really focused on that exception of like, oh, but you know, sometimes this can help a student focus more. And you know, oh, if they have an emergency, I should be able to get in contact with them. There are these like exceptions that keep kind of popping
Okay, now we're
survey.
moving on to teachers. So this question is, do you currently see phones or other personal devices during instructional time? So this is when the teacher is teaching. Do they generally see a lot of phones while that's happening? We already said some of the time. If you said all of the time, there was other options. It was, I mean, none of the time, not usually,
No,
right?
no, none.
There was no none, so that's not very
Teachers are
good.
seeing phones during instructional time. And the some of the time and all the time is kind of where we're at. Okay, when should phones, I believe that says when should phones not be allowed.
Yeah,
It does, okay.
we put it in all capitals too.
Yeah, we did, but, so a lot of those others were because of the question, the way it was worded. Again, when you put not in a question, it kind of confuses the answer, right? So we went through those. A lot of the teachers had some of the similar responses. Like, I mean, a lot of teachers thought that students should have it during lunch or after school and during class period, just not during the class time, right? So that's a lot of the others. It's just the way the question was worded. Again, this is a checkbox question, so there's multiple, there's teachers checking multiple boxes. So that's another thing with the percentages. Small group is.
Again, just because obviously I think we mostly got high school teachers in the survey. I don't think we were able to get to junior high and elementary. So this is very much like a high school representative sample.
And then a lot of the others were for teacher discretion, right? So I want to be able to tell my students that they can go and all those things, right?
Because some classes that were cited were perhaps a biology or a metals class where they maybe have to take a photo of their work or they have to take a photo of something outside. Well, phones have much better quality than Chromebooks. So it's just a lot better and a lot easier, honestly, to take a photo on your phone and perhaps like just submit it right there through Google Classroom on your phone. It's arguably more convenient than having to like take your Chromebook and like and try and find a way to like line it up to take a photo. Did you do it good quick?
There we go. Do you see phones or personal devices in class as harmful to a student's learning? You already said yes. Some of the responses were also sometimes, and again, a lot of the others were like, it depends on what the student's doing and all those sorts of things, right? So that, I mean, and again, the research back that it does disrupt the student learning and it is harmful. If students are not allowed to have cell phones, personal devices in class, should the same apply to teachers and staff? A lot of people said depending on the situation, and wrote a response for us. Some said yes and some said no. And so some things to consider are most different from yes answer.
Most divergence. So
Sorry.
most divergence from the yes answer outline specific scenarios. So perhaps like a certain delivery, I know that ag teachers definitely deal with this a lot, whether it be something that's having to be delivered to the barn or the metal shop or even the wood shop. They get constant deliveries, and so constant communication is needed because, you know, these aren't perhaps inside school organizations, these are outside of school organizations. So we kind of have to respect their time a little bit more. Also just health issues, you know, perhaps somebody may be diabetic or whatever their situation may be. And so obviously perhaps, you know, their phone is helping them monitor that. And so they should obviously have ready access to their device if for such a case. Go back. Oh, sorry. It's not included on the slide, but our last question was about any like last thoughts and like, or anything that these teachers might have had. And a lot of the responses reflected community responses and what we heard in focus groups. The vast majority of them said that like phones obviously should not be, they said not be used during school, especially during class time, but that after school and such non-academic times were kind of like free game. You know, you should be able to use your phone during that time. There was also a large focus on wanting students to socialize with their peers and also support for listening to music during independent work time as we speak. Okay. Now here's our perspective as student reps. Oh no,
They're not gonna do it?
don't tell me it's not gonna do it. It's wait, you have to click on the screen. Is it gonna work? No, wait, maybe it has to be in the middle. Maybe it has to be, no way, I put so much time into making this like transition. I did
She does all our slideshows.
I literally, it was
Okay.
like a quick order.
So I'm gonna just do this from here. Okay,
Make it big.
yeah, please.
Okay,
We're gonna do this
so
from here.
sadly,
So this is our perspective. So what we got from basically talking to students, the student surveys, staff surveys, here's what we got for you.
okay, so
so-
for the elementary school, basically a ban on personal devices at school. From what we've kind of like understood, it's like you're elementary kids, you're K through 6. Do you really need to be using a phone at school, especially when it's such a like crucial developmental time period? You know, these are the foundations of students as we see them when they present to high school. You know, this is how you build a strong foundation for somebody, obviously not just for high school, but perhaps college if that's what they choose to do, or the work directly to the workforce. You know, you kind of develop certain skills and they ultimately like, they translate into everything else that you do. Then again, you know, that parents sometimes will do it. You know, they'll give their child a phone anyway. So kind of have to recognize that. So if you do have them, keep them in your bag all day. You don't want to see it out, not at all. And then anything emergency related, whether that be health or anything emergency related at the school, obviously communicated between the school and the family. If it's health related, it's a personal conversation between the school and the family to help directly cater to that child to make sure that they are safe.
Okay, junior high. So junior high has already a really great policy that they're following really well. And their policy is really just no phones until it is lunch and before or after school, right? So phones are pretty much away. And as we talked to the junior high students, it works pretty well. They are doing really well with it. They have no problems with it. So they keep it tucked away in their bag. And then it's discretion of teacher, right? So then if teacher wants you to look up something, you can pull it out. Your parent is texting, you can pull it out to text them real quick, put it back. And that seems to be working just fine for them.
Mm-hmm. Now,
High
high school. Honestly, just keep it away during class. You know, that's like pretty vital times. You know, we're kind of getting to the point where passing your classes really does matter. It starts to become important. You know, it's not like junior high or elementary school where it's like, oh, you kind of didn't do so hot, but you still went on. You know, now your grades do start to matter. You know, if you don't pass the class, you don't get the credit. You have to make up that credit. You know, it becomes a long process. So keep it away during class, keep your focus in class, and do your assignments and pass the class.
Yeah, so again, what we have here is before school, after school, lunch and passing periods. I mean, that's your free time, right? I think what we really wanted to focus on was the different levels of maturity. High school, you have a different level of maturity where you can go on a passing period to use your bathroom, to go to the bathroom, to do what you need to do, and then get to class. So kind of giving that a little bit of more freedom. I would think that high school students were able to do that.
Also, just because as we were kind of talking, we've been discussing this a lot, you know, just kind of debating amongst ourselves, like, okay, but what about this? But what about this? And so we kind of, you know, high school is 14-year-olds all the way up to 18-year-olds. That's a pretty big difference. You know, one is a legal adult and one's barely out of middle school. So it's a big difference. And so, you know, the seniors will obviously have different needs for their phones than a freshly out of middle school freshman does. And so, you know, we kind of have to keep these things in mind because they're still our students, but we have to recognize that they're also transitioning into the adult world. And then again, just
Teacher discretion, right? So, I mean, if a teacher, you know, wants you to have your phone out, you can have your phone out. But I think what we really we're trying to focus on is like being cohesive in the policy and just kind of making sure that the expectation for each classroom and each school, junior high, elementary, is the same, and we all kind of have that policy down that way.
Mhm.
Is the only difference between junior high and high school the passing periods? I mean,
yeah.
Yes, I mean, I think it's a little more strict on, I mean, junior high, you have, there it goes, sorry. Junior high, I mean, it's a little more strict. The teachers are a lot more inclined to take your phone and not want you to have your phone out, right? So junior high is really like, most of you really don't have your phone. I think high school, you like, I mean, I'm guilty of it. I use my phone in class all the time. I am one of the students who gives out emails, schedule meetings, making sure like me and Lita are on the same page because we have a lot to do together. So, I mean, I'm guilty of it. I think there's just a little bit more leniency between junior high and high school.
But also, I think they implemented it really more so strictly this year that also it does help that the junior high is more of an indoor campus compared to the high school. And so it's much easier to tell a student, hey, you can't have your phone out during passing period because it's a much more enclosed space. Then again, though, you know, teachers are busy. They probably won't have time to be monitoring the hallways for every single phone that a student might have out. But the general consensus is keep your phone away in your backpack during the school day. So from practically bell to bell, really. Lunch is probably the exception, obviously before and after school, depending on, you know, sports or anything else like that. But it really is just, I guess, perhaps, as you said, like the passing periods, like the biggest difference.
okay.
And then something else that I did want to mention, we didn't really put it in here, but the concerns, right? So obviously the concerns of students, you know, I want to be able to have something that's going to allow me to communication with my parents and communication in case of emergency. All those things are very important, as well as my medical needs. So there's some things to think about when we're making a policy like this, is to think about the exceptions. With teachers, a lot of the concern was who's responsible for taking those phones, who's responsible for enforcing that. Teachers, as we've talked to them, don't really want to be responsible for a device that's hundreds of dollars and not, I mean, it's not really
theirs.
Not theirs, right? You don't want to be responsible for it if it gets broken or if it gets lost or those sorts of things. Keeping track of who has had their phone out multiple times during class and who hasn't, right? All those things are things that teachers are concerned about taking responsibility for, right? So I just wanted to point out that that is something that we have to recognize and get solutions for when it comes to this phone calls and stuff. Any questions?
Board member questions?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. I mean, first, just a comment. Wow. Right, very thorough, very thoughtful. I appreciated the way that you're digesting all of that information. I wondered if the school bus came up specifically.
We definitely had conversations about it.
It is a
lot.
hard thing to regulate, especially, I mean, like we talked to like Ferndale, and Ferndale has a lot more staff than we do, right? They have a different situation than we do. It's difficult to do. We've thought about a few things, right? So we've thought about volunteers, right? We have early childhood education class here.
Intro ed.
Intro to ed. That's what I said. Oh, sorry. My bad. And so those students actually go to the elementary schools and they hang out. And so we've thought about what if you volunteered to go sit on a bus and help out with that sort of thing.
And whether it could count, you know, perhaps towards like extra credit points within the class, perhaps, or even just like as community service hours. You know, perhaps Honor Society could get roped in because, you know, arguably they're pretty responsible students. And so, you know, we've kind of thought of, you know, situations and ways that we could make it work, but it always comes back to like, it arguably comes back to, these are elementary kids for the most part. And so, do we really want to put high schoolers, I guess, is the kind of a question, in charge of these elementary kids? But then it's also, how many parents could have volunteer perhaps? And then it's like, but the amount of buses that we have perhaps. And so it becomes who, is it even possible? Like, what would be like the sort of like checks to see if a person is, qualified, perhaps should we have them have certain qualifications and stuff like that? And so it's definitely something that's come up, and we've discussed a lot of possibilities, but it's definitely not something solid. And I think it does need to be discussed a lot more.
So monitoring is the
Yes.
big issue that came up around the bus.
Mhm.
And then I wondered about I'm sure you came across this at some point, but content specifically, like content that's out of bounds. Do you have suggestions
The
for
idea
how
for-
students
Yeah.
see that
See that.
boundary and how it should be regulated?
Right, so
or
I
not?
mean, obviously the idea for that is that if you are not on your phone for majority of the day, which elementary, you maybe shouldn't be on your phone for the majority of the day. Or at all. But that's up to the parents. That's the way that we kind of emerge off of that, right? I think we focus more on socializing with your friends, and you socialize with teachers, that hopefully that kind of it gets you from being and doing things that maybe you're not supposed to.
Well, I was thinking along the lines of like inappropriate content.
Right, yeah.
Right.
See, that becomes one of the things that are difficult to like really manage, simply because they're personal devices of students. It's kind of difficult to say, like, it is a big thing to say to somebody like, oh, you were watching something inappropriate while at school. So it's like, not only is it embarrassing if it turns out to be false, we've all been in high school at some point. We all know that the way things can get so easily attached to students in the form of rumors or whatever it may be. And so that's definitely a challenge that comes with phones. I don't think it'll be an easy solve, but it is something that definitely has to be discussed moving forward in whatever situation that may be.
We can, right? So social media is restricted on our phone. That I'm sure is restricted on any device that is in the elementary to junior high, right? So those are the kind of things that we can do as a school, is just kind of restrict those things. But other than that,
On a personal device.
yeah, on a personal device,
That's
it's
hard
not
to-
You can't restrict it, but you could say that certain types of content are
Come
out of
with-
bounds, and if
yes.
there's an actual teacher witnessing something,
Then consequences should fall.
I feel like a policy might need to make a head nod at that. But if you're on the Wi-Fi,
That's blocked.
you can't get on.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that'll
blocked.
block it.
But if you're on like 5G.
Yeah, if you're on your own stuff,
Right.
you're
Yeah, that's
whatever.
personal.
Have
That is
authority to block it, but you could have consequences for. And so I was just curious if students had thoughts about, because that's what is inappropriate, right? Yeah, to me, it sounds like there's a lot of gray area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jason?
great start. I think there's a lot of stuff, like some of the stuff with, what the kids like and don't like. And the WASDA, when Ferndale talked about this, like they said, as it's going on, the student reps talked, and they were saying that, they noticed themselves, you get a habit, no phones, where they're even seeing it outside of school. They don't use their phones as much because they don't use them during the day. And so very beneficial, I think, once the ball gets rolling and people get used to it, it's more helpful than just in the school. And then we talked about like teachers didn't want to take phones and be responsible. I know Ferndale, like the kid takes it to the office when they get caught with it, and they take it and it goes in there. I don't believe it was a lockbox or whatever it was, and it was either the student at the end of the day or a parent can come and get it. So there's a lot of stuff that we might be able to kind of see what, I know they're a lot bigger and things are different, but there's some things I think we can maybe get from them that would help us out a lot.
Another thing that we talked to Brenda about when it came to sort of that was communication with parents, right? So they have automated phone calls that go home and say, hey, your student's phone was taken today. And that was also in the community responses, was I want to know when my student's phone is taken or when my student's on their phone when they're not supposed to be. So that was another thing we kind of took note of and pulled away from talking with Ferndale student reps is that communication of discipline between the school and the parents.
Definitely just because, these are parents like probably pretty involved in like their student success. And so obviously if their kid is like breaking the rules at school, well, I'm sure that they want to know, what rule they were breaking, and then probably corrective behavior at home. I know sometimes I'll accidentally get marked absent because maybe the teacher doesn't see me because I'm hiding in the back or something. And then as soon as I get home, my mom's asking me, hey, why did you skip school?
See,
And it's like, I did not skip school, Mom.
you get to go home though. You get a full day. As soon as that phone call gets home, my father will go, where are you? Like, I'm in class. I'm here. I'll send you a photo outside of the mom here. I promise. Then my mom will send 5 texts. Where are you? Get back to class. Go make sure to approve that attendance. I got it. I'm here.
So, we would sit, knowing how like our parents at least respond to, these automated calls about attendance, kind of makes you wonder how would parents respond to automated calls about, cell phone usage of a certain student. I'm sure parents are.
They would text her.
Why
are you on your phone?
Why are you replying to me? There was some responses were like, we are guilty of texting our daughter while in class, but we can stop. I think it's something that parents can learn. There was a time before phones. I don't know that time, but I'm sure y'all do. Where you just call the office and you go, I want to talk to my kid, and then they pull out. Not directly.
So in your case, you're not gonna send the next text. Why didn't you respond to my text? About being on your phone.
Yeah.
So Brenna,
So a lot of what I'm hearing is that, it seems like there's a lot of fear of making change and trying something new. And, that's just something that I think that people are gonna have to get over, and we're gonna have to try this. Yes, it's different. It's going to be hard. People aren't going to like it, but we can renegotiate later or look back and make changes as we go. Like that's the part of being a board. We set policy and we can make changes as appropriate and as we need. So I don't think that, the whole just at the teacher's discretion thing, I don't like the sound of that. I think there's too much of, one person's gonna be this way, one person's gonna be that way. And that's what we have now, and it's obviously not working. So I am all for sort of blankets and trying to kind of like create an even playing field across the board. And yeah, it's going to be painful in the beginning, but, I don't think that's not a reason to try it. So I am also curious about music. Like I understand that, however, how is that going to be monitored? That seems like a very hard thing to monitor. But I know that it does help certain kids in certain ways. And so that can also, we can make exceptions for that and bring that into procedure somehow. So, but I think it's the Band-Aid. We just gotta go for it.
On the second part of like, with music and how do you monitor that? A lot of teachers definitely had the same response. They were like, we'll say like, oh, you can pick out you can listen to music while you work. And then all of a sudden it's like, why are you taking like 15 minutes to pick a song to listen to? And it's like, well, you're not picking a song anymore. You're scrolling through TikTok or something. And it's like, that is not what you were supposed to do. And so, obviously teachers have said, that's hard to monitor, but it's like, we can't, for the student that really does help listening to music and they're really good about, playlist, boom, back in the backpack, then it becomes like unfair. So obviously, those are one of the things that it's difficult to manage, as you say, but I would hope that we would find a way to, make it work. As you say, we can go back and we can revise and we can edit and we can amend as, things progress. Right.
I guess my thought is for the policy to be successful, it's gotta be super clear.
Yeah.
If there's any room to misinterpret or misunderstand, that's probably gonna happen. I think that's a good example of looking for a song, right? There's that kind of in-between gray area of what could happen. But the good thing potentially to allowing students to listen to music independently, it's really important to them. We also want to create a buy-in for policy where we're going to have some clear lines. So like helping them students feel like they kind of got some wins within that, then it makes it easier to enforce more stringently when there should be no phones during like instruction, for example. But appreciate the work that you
Yeah.
girls have put into that. Seems like we're making progress. Part of the benefit of having students direct this is that we want to get buy-in everyone involved. Keep up the good work.
Well, first of all, I really want to thank you for all the time that you put in, diligence that you put into your research, your connecting with students, staff, and parents, community members. That's incredible with everything else that you're doing to further your own learning. And so very thorough. Did you get an opportunity to compare our current policy with WASDA's model policies on cell phone?
Not, we did, so when we had that meeting with Ferndale's student reps, we compared and we were just going over that.
So was Ferndale using more or less WASDA's policy?
I'm not
not
entirely
sure.
sure, but they were definitely like a, kind of like a bell to bell, no phones, not in
Okay.
passing periods. So that was kind of like their thing. I think they might have mentioned modeling a little bit after WASDA's, but it was definitely like a lot of just like, that was kind of the standard, like no phone, bell to bell, not in passing periods. Can't remember. I think they might have had an exception during lunch, but
They're only allowed during lunch, but yeah, not at any time, so like Brenna was talking about, like a whole blanket.
So that, going forward, that would be one of the things that we would include is looking at both WASDA's policy and then several other districts too, and seeing how
I
that
think
works.
we were able to get a kind of like a teensy glimpse at Nooksac's policy, just because they're kind of like similar size to us. So
Right.
Mr. Durand suggested for us to look at theirs. And so, yeah, we kind of like looked at theirs, kind of compared it to ours and obviously noticed what their changes were. And, I think
That's one thing to point out is when we talked to, our English teacher, Ms. Sullivan, she also has contacts in a second. What she was talking about when she was talking with us was the rise in freshman
passing grades.
passing grades.
When Nooksack implemented their new phone policy, which I think was kind of similar to Ferndale's, they saw a huge improvement in freshman passing rates. So like more freshmen were passing their classes with that new stricter phone policy. And so obviously that's a cool thing to consider, seeing as how obviously we would hope that something similar would happen here at Baker. We obviously want our students to pass.
When, looking at this generation's development, both emotionally and academically, phone-free time is really valuable to that development. And the only time there's going to be if there's going to be any phone-free time for this generation, it's got to be at school. Because it's not going to happen at home. You can pretty much guarantee you. You're not getting your 5 hours.
You're not getting your 5 hours all year at school.
So that's one of the things to think about. And then music, there's different kinds of music. I mean, cows produce more milk if they listen to classical music. But there's other types of music that are very popular that are kind of on the other end of the spectrum.
The cows don't like them.
I haven't listened, I was doing some blasting for a dairyman and his milk production went way down when I was blasting stumps around the cows. So the different sounds affect people or other animals differently. And so as you look at that issue of music, I think it's something that it's not just an easy one to answer. That's my only caution on that. But I really appreciate your input and I think as we move ahead with this, and I agree with Brenna, we do need to do something, and I do agree that it's a lot easier on everyone if we can come pretty close to one size fits all. I think our current thing where where it's up to each teacher puts too much onto the teacher. Doesn't give them the district backing to sort of enforce the rules, if there aren't any real rules.
And we did, right, so we kind of, I mean, one of these things was, I'm a person who likes to talk personally, I like reading responses, but I like to talk personally, so. I went to some of those teachers that are more lenient on phones, and some of I mean, the most consistent is, I don't want to take a kid's phone, it's disruptive to when I'm teaching, and then I have to stop and take a phone and write down the name and put it in my desk, like, all those things are kind of disruptive. And some teachers, some teachers don't mind it if you're on your phone, right? So that's the reason, I guess, for our some teachers don't care and some teachers do care. So I think that's one thing that maybe should be a little bit more under.
Thank you very much. I think we'll.
So for next steps on this, I have a couple days with the principals in June where we're gonna spend some time working on a variety of leadership topics, but one of them is the cell phone policy. So we're gonna be looking at policies from neighboring school districts and WASDA model policy, and then we'll connect with our student reps and hopefully have a policy recommendation to the board by the first meeting in August, so that we can have time to implement before the start of the school year.
Great.
So next up, we have Acme Elementary presentation.
Great. And are we, well, I didn't bring popcorn or Prego.
Oh, well,
I
we'll
just packed
we'll
up.
skip it tonight, then.
I'll pack it up in my purse if you want. And I'm here, so everybody knows me, I'm Kim, the principal, and I'm here with Rose Stevens, who teaches second grade. So I don't know, how do you guys want us to stand or?
However you can bring chairs up, or you can stand.
So Rose is here for, to give us some of the teacher context to this. So what I'm gonna share with you is kind of how we look on paper. So I've always said this year that we are the little school with the big heart. And so I wanted to share, this is what heart does on paper. And tomorrow when you come and visit us, you'll get to feel it, what it's like in the building, especially at the end of the year when things are getting a little wild. Kids are a little excited, or we're definitely on the countdown.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, all right. So, essentially the big picture for us is that we had our growth this year was broad and balanced. So, our reading scores, this is just on grade level right now. So we'll look at the whole school picture. So students, when we tested in the fall, we only had 25% of our students in reading at or above grade level, and in the spring we were at 57%. And in math, we which was an area of focus for us this year, we quadrupled our scores, and we went from 12% at or above grade level to 51%, which is, we still have room to grow, but I want to stress that is tremendous growth.
Absolutely.
And so about 56%, 56.4% of our students met or exceeded their iReady typical growth target for the year. And our office referrals went down from 51 in the August to October period to just 27 from November to May. And we'll look a little bit more for that. So we're just gonna kind of look at our growth through those lenses of, we'll look at attendance, office referrals, and then our test scores. So again, we had a SIP plan like you saw with Kendall. So our SIP plan was just we were trying to increase 7 percentage points at or above grade level in reading and math. And we did that. We came up quite a bit. We really, I think we underestimated what we could do, and I'm hoping that we can adjust that next, but tremendous. So we exceeded those. And then in discipline and attendance, we were looking at reducing our chronic absence rate from 38%. Our target that we chose on the SIP was 30%, and we actually made it down to 26%. So we met that well. So quickly checking our academic growth. Again, this is just our at grade level targets, which we saw before. But this is what the whole distribution did. So what you're looking at here in the bottom is reading fall and then to reading spring. So you can see the red shrinks and the green grows. So that's telling you that how we moved kids across all of those levels.
Mhm.
And then math, of course, up there at the top. And math is, I mean, reading is no slouch, but math was really our standout movement. Our strongest gains were in the early grades. So you can see there our kindergarten really kicked tail, where our reading is looking pretty good in our K3 bands. And then in our 4, 5, and 6 bands, the growth was not as much. We also know that we have split classes there. And so this is an interesting point of data for us to look at how students in split classes perform against students who are in single classes. Also, these are students who were in kindergarten during COVID. So kindergarten and first grade. So their reading foundations across the nation are showing that they are lower. So next year, we'll take this on board and we are going to be focusing on some vocabulary and comprehension work. Will be an intervention focus for our upper grading reading next year. Most of our students hit their growth goals. So we hit our median target, but so the 55% of our students in reading met their typical growth, but the median was 106%. So I put the median scores in there just so you could see that when you're looking at averages, because we had some students who didn't make a lot of growth, but then the median was tremendous growth. So we're pretty excited to capitalize on it.
What was the target? You said the median.
So how iReady works is when you take the test, the first test, it sets on your benchmark for each student, it sets a typical growth. So it'll say, kids like Edward in this grade at this age who get this score in the fall typically grow 29 points by spring.
Okay.
So everybody gets their own points, and then we attempt to have each kid meet that target. It also provides a stretch growth, which is roughly, it's your typical growth plus 25%. So once we hit that typical growth, then we're pushing through to get to the stretch growth. And for our students who were below grade level, when we start, we understand it's going to take a couple of years of meeting those stretch targets to get them onto grade level. But what we're showing is that we are making growth and we can close those gaps if we are meeting those stretch goals every year. And then the other thing that we can do is take a look at their spring scores, and we can use an algorithm to project what we might see on SBA. And Rose and I were just being cheeky while we were waiting for our turn to go. We looked, so some of the SBA scores are already posted. And I can tell you that the projection of 24% at or above grade level in SBA for 5th grade, it was 23%. So it's pretty close. So that's what we're projecting. Again, it's just a projection. Everybody can have a bad day because it's a single day in time, and it's it can be a lot of stress, but that's what we're projecting our SBA scores. And last year, the 3+ grade bands were 40.2% in ELA, and I'm projecting will be around 48%. And then 34% last year in math, and we're projecting 39. So we'll wait with bated breath to see how close that algorithm actually works out.
So what date are these representing here, this chart? Is this beginning?
This is the projection what in reading. So reading is the green bar and gold is math. And what I'm projecting based on for grades 3, 4, 5, and 6, what our SBA scores at 3 and 4 will be based on their spring score on iReady.
Okay, so it was projected based on
their iReady score.
Fall scores.
It's projected on their spring score.
On their spring?
Yeah, it's more accurate because we have our final iReady test in May, just before they take the SBA. So we were using that to see, our experiment is to run to see how close.
Calibrate the
Yeah.
two.
So, so far, so the algorithm actually comes from Kent School District, who've been using iReady for a while, and this is, it's their algorithm. So we're gonna see if it applies to us. And if the 5th grade math scores are indicative of the accuracy, it looks like it's pretty close. It's within 1.5 percentage points. So yeah, we're pleased with that. I'll let you know. And then behavior and school climate, and this is where Rose can really talk, because Rose was at Acme last year. But this is our data based on our internal referral system. You can see we spiked right in the fall, but once we started, and down there right about 5 is the Christmas time when there was no school. But it tells you that once our building routines and classroom routines were settling in, our referrals reduced quite a bit. And the interesting thing about that is that out of all of our referrals, it was only 25 of our 154 students who were in the building at all that got the referrals. But the really striking thing for me was 49% of all the referrals traced to just 3 students. So that tells you that the behavior, we have some big behaviors in a few kids, but overall behavior is pretty typical. And no surprise where it's happening is in the classroom and on the playground, primarily because that's where they spend most of their time. But that's, yeah. But I think if you had any questions about school climate, this would be happy to talk about that. But we'll pop through here and we'll let you see if you have any other questions. Our attendance, we came in below our target, so we're at 26.4%. We were going for 30. And last year at this time, it was our regular attendees were at 62% and we're up to 73.6. Our median student is attending very well. We have about 1 in 4 students who are still have chronic absenteeism, but for the most part, kids are coming to school and apply regularly. But when you're a small population, when you have a few kids that aren't coming to school, then it's hard to close that gap. But we're still pretty proud of the movement that we've made there. Right, so growth was real and broad. Our climate turned a corner from the fall. We had our storming stage and then we settled right down. Our proficiency gap is the next climb for us next year. We've already started to identify some targets that we are focusing our win time on for next year, and attendance is we'll hope to drive that down a little bit more. But I'm really, really proud of the teachers and the students and their hard work and just coming in, putting in the grind day to day to get better. So I'm privileged to be in a place where people put all their blood, sweat, and tears into a group of kids. Do you have anything you?
No, just addressing your climate thing. I think that the kids really kind of at the very beginning of the year were kind of like push, 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 push. And thanks to some policies that were just kind of from the very beginning, it was just like every time you push, this is the boundary, this is the boundary, this is the boundary. And so like, I think that dip was then realizing, oh, that's the boundary every time. Okay, we're done trying to test it. Which really felt much calmer in spring.
And how does that affect like the feelings for teachers? Like, does it seem to kind of having that boundary? Like, I know, like, so I work in a restaurant and we have rules, and like, if you go beyond the rule, then we have 3 beer maximum, right? And so people know that and they don't try to get an extra one, but the ones that don't, they get really upset about it. And then, well, that's the house rules, like that, you know what I mean? Like, they're confident in that. And so I just wonder if that's helpful to the teachers' morale to kind of like, we have this, that's theirs.
Definitely, we know that like, okay, we've gotten to the 3rd beer, there's no more beers.
Right.
That's how you run, right?
Not so much.
Maybe I missed it.
But that they know that like, this is the first consequence, this is the second consequence, okay, and when you hold that every single time, and we had a lot of support doing that as well, which was incredible, then they stop testing eventually because they know that they're not going to get another beer.
Well, 3 students.
Well, except for,
Three students still have it.
There are
They're
always
still testing.
exceptions.
They're
There are
still
always
testing,
exceptions.
Yeah, but that was when looking at this, that was a real surprise to me. Because I was only looking at the numbers and then I was like, oh, I see, who exactly is it? And it's,
Yeah.
there you go.
So the having clear boundaries on behavior, I'm sure had a positive impact on improvement in, I'm guessing in reading and math, even just having that there. Was there any other policy changes or things happening that drove the improvement?
Yeah. We have 2 win groups, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, one for language arts for 30 minutes, one for math for 30 minutes. And this year, Kim was really supportive in us pulling in a couple of programs that really were explicit 30-minute targeted instruction programs that I think really helped our kids as far as their foundational skills. And a lot of those, even 4th through 6th graders, were able to move back into some of those foundational skills without it feeling too juvenile for them to feel like, oh, I'm being babied, and make some of that. I think that was huge for us as far as like everybody was on board. We shared the responsibility for all of the kids, divvied them all out, and we had to trust that if I'm sending my kids to this person, they're also doing the very best that they can for that student, whether it's a para, in a group.
Yeah.
I think that was huge.
That was really kids kind of all hands like that and just pitched doing
Everybody.
Yeah.
And I look forward to it tomorrow.
Yeah, we're looking forward to. First grade's out on a field trip. It's that time of year, and 3rd grade is they're sitting their last section of their math exam, but everybody else is we're looking forward to welcoming them. Yeah.
So we'll meet 9:30 at that.
Yeah.
Are the 2 of you having dinner?
I'm not gonna be able to go, I've got things.
That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just really want to say that the growth is impressive. And it's not just impressive to us seeing this data. I mean, I think a state level promotion for that growth. And I just want to say that out loud on the record, in the recording. That's a great accomplishment for our students.
Yeah.
And all of that hard work that our students did, but also the people behind them supporting that work and making those targeted changes. I'm excited to see what you're gonna do next.
Thanks. Yeah, we're excited to give it a go. It's fun time. It really is, I think.
Well, the colors on the bands are kids who feel better about what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's really been helpful, I think, and I mean, even working with kids who are, when you have a system that, even if they're below grade level, but you can show them that they're moving progress, they can map that they're moving progress and see that. It's helpful because other systems that you use, if it's a traditional grading system or if you're just referencing big summative tests, it kind of gets you down if you're always in the red. But if you can, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I had my students track, we were working on fact fluency. So they would do their little things and they would come back to me and track on a little graph how far they were getting. And we had the little pink target line for them to get to. And they got so excited to like put their little dot on there and be like, look, I moved up, look, I moved up. And every once in a while they moved down. And I'd be like, that's okay, that happens, we all do that. And like they were always after like, after break. I was like, that's why practicing at home is so important, but just their level of confidence and like, I haven't reached that goal yet, but I see that I am getting there was huge. Yeah. Even for 6 and 7-year-olds.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for your time and we'll look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is, thank you very much, monthly finance report. Donna?
I feel like you're gonna catch me up later. I just confirmed this is how much. I have.
That's my
Yes.
kid.
Didn't notice any recognition from anyone, so.
At least he didn't fall asleep during the finance. review.
Yeah.
Well, at least it wasn't a finance report.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So we are looking at a small decline in our enrollment. 1422.87 is our annual average as of April. And our actual head count is 1456.94, so down just a couple. So another look at those numbers over the year.
Well, that's all in 1 year.
General fund balance is looking better than it was last month. We're sitting at 2.2 million at the end of April. I feel like I'm on repeat with this statement, but we all know that we're trying to reach at least 4%, which would possibly mean we can exit our binding conditions. The estimated amount for that is 1.3 million. Board policy, of course, requires 5%, so we are continuing to work towards that minimum balance. A few changes in the other funds. Capital projects is up to 3.9 million. That increase is due to our tax collection. Debt service, it's at 1,300. ASB is up a little bit, 395. And then our transportation vehicle fund is up. We had a payment from an insurance claim. General fund revenue and expenditures. April revenues were at 4.4 million. Again, that's due to our taxes. Expenditures were at 3.2. General fund expenditures overall are at 22 million and represent 65% of our budgeted appropriations. We've got about 1.4 million currently encumbered, which includes staffing and supplies through the end of the year. And these numbers totaled represents about 95.92% of our budgeted appropriations. So if we can stick to those numbers, we would be in a good place, not having spent our entire estimated expenditure. This is just another look at our fund balance by month. I'll have to do something different next month or you won't be able to see it. But the blue line is our current condition. So I think that's pretty reasonable considering what we've been through this year. And then I threw this one in here. You looked at it when we at our last meeting. Sorry, it's not really lined up very well. The top box is our revenue again by month. And so through April, those numbers are solid. May, we're still putting numbers into the system, so not quite. May isn't solved yet. $500,000 transfer from capital projects
to the general fund for the end of May. And then our expenditures are below that. Sorry.
So on this,
I was hoping to
on the
scroll up, but
last
it's not
slide, the bottom line are the fund balance month by month,
The very bottom line is our cash balance.
cash balance,
Yes.
cash balance.
Our projected year-ending fund balance is 1.3 million. Or 1.43, I think.
I would like to think it'll be closer to that 1.6.
1.6.
I would like it to be.
Okay.
If we're not hit with any crazy cash outs or anything unexpected, I would think it's gonna be closer to 1.6. Please do not hold me to that number. This is my first year, but the
the 4%
is 1.3.
1.3, and then what would 5% be? It's just you can figure that out.
I think it's closer to 1.6.
1.6. Okay.
1.65, 1.7.
When we do our study session on June 11th, we'll have some updates from the information that we provided in the first study session. There've been a lot of changes that have made with the reductions and with expenditures that we're being extremely frugal about. And so, yeah, we are definitely trending in the right direction, but we're very cautious because as we found, things can change quickly. And so
I think it's become more apparent that the additional challenges next year would erode that. The ending fund balance from this year looks better than when we start applying next year's additional challenges. That becomes more concerning. So I think that'll be the numbers as you get closer and closer there that we look at, that will be useful at our next meeting.
5% is 1.62.
1.6, okay, I said
Yeah.
1.65, that was all.
According to ChatGPT.
And my calculator. There was a attachment for budget status report, and I had a question for Jessica in our one-on-one related to special ed. Now, this isn't anything new. It's always been there. It just, for whatever reason, caught my eye. And so we spend more on special education than what we budget. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the plan over the next year.
So you'll remember the big three kind of graphic around what the state funds and what our costs are. So special education is one of those that we do not receive enough money from the state for what our actual special education costs are. And that we've been over budget in that area almost all year as we've gone through that.
But also year after year.
Yeah,
This isn't.
it's not new. So that's part of the work that we've been doing as a team this year, is really looking at those expenses and looking at the staffing related to that. And we're going to be doing a WASA program review of our special education department, like everything, looking at the way that we do paperwork, the way that we do qualifications for students, the way that we do staffing. So that's going to be happening in September. And as we do have a new student services director coming on, I think that's going to be helpful information for whoever that is, to get a good sense of what the reality is right now. What I'd like to do, and I can't, make promises around that because we need to make sure we're meeting student needs. So just saying we're going to cut the special education budget in half is not the right way to go. But what I do want to do is look at a 3-year plan where each year can we identify $200,000 to $300,000 in reductions that we can make over time, still keeping student need and programmatic necessities in place. And so that'll be the work of our new director, that will get to know, working closely with that person, and that's a goal, because I think if we can figure out that really tough puzzle in terms of special education, if the money's not going to come from the state, what can we do on our end to get more creative about how we're staffing and meeting student needs.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And then my other question that Katana answered is we had some money come into community services related to the, I guess, pay for the architectural, pay for the costs associated with the study for the medical,
School-based help.
yeah, health. Thank you. That's all I have.
So that's all you had.
All I had.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, good work. Thank you. Well presented. Okay, next we have policy review, Baker policy 5404. This was our second reading. Need anything to?
Yeah, the only changes there were a few things that were highlighted in the sample policy or model policy last time. So we talked about that in our last meeting, and then we've updated that to match what our practice is.
Any further questions or concerns with this? If not,
Danielle has a comment.
Oh, you do have.
I had a couple
You were
questions.
smiling, you weren't speaking though.
I was
Her
waiting for
body
you to
language was-
pause. so that
I
then
thought that
could
was a
say-
pause, but.
I had a
It
couple
was a
questions, but
short
I don't know
pause.
if this
Okay,
needs
go
to
ahead.
go in the
Go ahead.
policy or if it shows up in procedure. But like donated leave plan, how that might impact the way that people use their FMLA or PMLA. I'm looking at, there are some sticking points that happen when you start to try and look at how the state level coverage, is the right word, and the federal level coverage intersect and don't. And so I was curious if our procedure is going to talk about, do we have a donated leave plan? I'm assuming we did. And how that might work in congruence with the leave that people get. And then also intermittent leave. Do we have any kind of blanket policy about people being able to take intermittent leave? Because I know that can get kind of
Like with
messy.
family medical leave.
Yes.
Yes. So
Is that in our procedure
Yes.
also? Good. And then, what about, it said that people may use all of their sick leave, before they take leave without pay. Do we require them to do that? Or can they choose to just jump into leave without pay and preserve their sick leave?
that would be a question that Pam would know.
Okay.
So
And I don't know if that should be defined at the policy level or not, but those are just some little areas of wonder for me. But if the procedure covers the intermittent leave and the donated leave plan and how that interfaces with.
yeah,
all
we're
of
still
this.
doing all of those things and meeting all those needs. The changes here are, it's trying to give us enough of a broad umbrella because these laws keep changing,
Yes,
just to make sure that
we don't have to keep revising the policy. I just want us to be as clear and consistent as possible with our policy and procedure so that we're not in a place as a district where we're granting for one and we're not for another. Because that can open us up to.
one of the consistent things that we are starting this year is in the past with a lot of staff members who requested leaves. And then we had leave replacements for them. And we ended up paying benefits for both the employee and the leave replacement, which is much more money than what we had budgeted for a single position. So now as people are asking for leaves, we're granting whatever we can, so long as it doesn't cost the district more money. And so that typically it's about 3 hours, no more than 3 hours a day before you would start triggering benefits overtime. It's about 680 hours when benefits start kicking in. And so that's been a hard conversation with a few folks that have been used to just in the past, anybody could take leave and it all worked out. But we're definitely tightening that up and being consistent about it.
Yeah, that's all.
So does that answer all your questions
It
so that we
absolutely
can
does.
include those things in procedures?
Yes, if all of that is covered and included in procedure, I'm good.
So any other? So then I will ask again, or entertain a motion for approval of Mount Baker Policy 5404.
Motion to approve policy 5404 final reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, upcoming events, so our next event then is actually tomorrow, Acme School Visit. And then June 4th, high school graduation. June 11th, at our board meeting, now we have a budget study session prior to the board meeting, so that's 5 p.m. And on the same day, June 11th, retirement tea is 3:30 to 4:30 here in the boardroom also. So
What
if
day
you're
is
able
that?
to make it
June
early.
11th. June 11th,
for that
3:30.
part, and then
Right before
we'll
graduation.
just
No.
go into the budget study
June
session
11th.
at 5 p.m. on June 11th. So next, executive session, the board will recess into executive session, so 30 minutes still. For 30 minutes, discuss the performance of a public employee and discuss collective bargaining negotiations. No action will be taken following the executive session. We'll sign a papers here first before we go in. Thank you.
I'll let them sleep. You're gonna be in an executive session.
We'll just leave them here as the lights go out.